Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. I originally intended to record this video where it was just a voiceover, just audio, but people don't like those videos as much as the ones where I show my face so that people can see my facial expression. So we will endeavor to do this, but if I break out in a sweat, you'll have to understand that I just finished working out and you'll have to bear with me. But in this video, what I'm going to attempt to do is to answer a question that I've been getting a lot from people as of late. And I am getting this question because there are a lot of folks that are either coming to this hobby as new collectors or a lot of folks that are newly returning to the hobby. Literally every other day, if not every day, I get a message from someone that is like, I'm new to comics, tell me where to begin. Or I am newly back into comics after being away for 20 and 30 years. I have a lot to catch up on. Help me to get up to speed. And I honestly love these types of messages, whether they come in the form of comments on my videos, messages via Instagram, or even emails for that matter. I love these type of messages because it is a signal that the comic book community and this hobby are thriving. They are doing well. More and more people are finding their way here, but they're also finding their way to the channel as well, which I think is a wonderful thing. But the question that I'm getting from people is, how do I collect comics? That is the more fundamental question that I get asked by a lot of people that are new to the hobby. How do I collect comics? And there are levels or layers to that question that they're asking that I'm going to try to dig into in this video. At its core, comic book collecting is nothing more than taking a comic that you've purchased and placing it in a box. That is a collection. That is literally as fundamental and as basic as it can possibly be. It is a book in a box. That's it. Again, the goal of the channel is to help you to make sense of comic book collecting. And at its core, it's a book in a box. That's pretty much it. Now, there are, of course, layers that you can add to that. Layers of complexity, and maybe we're going to dig into some of that stuff in here in just a moment. But people ask this question because they don't know where to begin. And one of the pieces of advice that we as comic book collectors that have more experience oftentimes tell people is that they should collect what they love. But the challenge is, if you're new to comics, you don't love anything, right? Because you don't know anything, so it's impossible to love it, therefore you cannot collect it. The way that you go about finding something that you love is by reading comics. Again, super simple. Read some comics. And when I say read some comics, I'm saying you need to experiment and figure out what it is that you are actually interested in. And you do that by exposing yourself to as many different types of comics as you can get your hands on. And maybe not even your physical hands, because you might choose to read a lot of this stuff digitally. But I would recommend that you try to read comics from every single era if that is something that you might be interested in. And I say that because Golden Age comics are very different from modern comics. Modern comics are very different from Silver Age comics, and Bronze Age are slightly different as well. But when you take a step away from the ages of comics, you actually can talk about the different genres as well. Like there's superhero, and there's romance, and there's westerns, and there's just all kinds, sci-fi, horror, all kinds of different genres of comics across those different ages of comics that you can explore. And so you have to experiment. You have to read what is out there. And by doing this, you're going to figure out a couple of things. You're going to figure out what you don't like, and you're also going to figure out some things that are of interest to you. And that is half the battle. Because if you can narrow your focus, and I don't think it has to be super narrow, but if you can narrow your focus somewhat from the infinite number of comics and genres and ages that are out there to something that is a little more narrow, then that gives you a little bit of focus. And from there, you can fine tune it over time. Once you know what you like, then you can go and buy that stuff, but it takes time, right? So get a subscription to like Marvel Unlimited and read Marvel comics. DC has a similar digital platform that allows you to buy comics, read them digitally. You can also go to an LCS and just ask the proprietor what's hot out right now, what just came out, what do you recommend? Ask them these questions, buy the books, take them home, read them. And by reading, again, you're going to be opening your mind to the possibility of all the things that are out there. Personally, I am a Spider-Man fan, specifically a Silver Age Spider-Man fan. There are a lot of other things that I enjoy, but at my core, I am a Silver Age Spider-Man collector. That is what I enjoy, but I've read comics literally from every single era, starting with some of the original comics for both Marvel and DC. I've gone back and read early Batman comics from the 1930s. I've read early timely Atlas comics as well. And I've done this because I wanted to experience those comics. And I can tell you, some are better than others. I will tell you that. But it's through experimentation that you're going to find out what you like. And once you find that thing, then you can start to buy that thing. In many ways, as I mentioned, that there are layers to some of the questions that people are asking. People are saying, how do I collect? And in some ways, I think people are basically asking what they should buy and what they should invest in. What I will tell you is that I will not tell you what to buy or invest in, because I don't want that type of responsibility. To be completely honest, I don't want that kind of responsibility, because if I'm wrong, I would have wasted your hard-earned money, and I don't want to do that. But the best piece of advice is to read some comics, figure out what you like. When you find out what you like, then collect or invest in that thing. Now, I don't personally collect or invest in things that I don't like. And here's the reason why. If I buy something that I don't like and that thing loses value, then my feelings are hurt. I feel like I've wasted my money, right? But if I buy a comic that I really like and it's a character or a creator that, that I really enjoy, if that thing goes down in value, I'm actually not as hurt by it, because more than likely I really wanted that comic. I probably read that comic. I enjoy staring at that comic, so I have derived some value and enjoyment from that thing beyond just the monetary. Again, if I buy something that I don't really enjoy and it loses value, but I've never read it, I don't really like it, don't really care for it, now I have it and it's worth less, then I feel a certain way about that. So if you're buying and investing and collecting in something that you actually enjoy, you can derive a lot of value from that thing beyond just the monetary. But if it goes up in value, that is also a win. The other reason why I don't collect or invest in books that I don't really care about is because I also don't pay attention to the movement associated with those books as closely as if it was something that I really enjoy. And here's what I mean. If I started to invest in Power Rangers, for example, I don't really know any of the characters for Power Rangers. I don't pay attention, for example, to like movie announcements and directors being selected, or a new title being released from Boom Studios that is a Power Rangers title. So I'm not paying attention to the very things that could affect the value of the comic that is in my possession. And by not paying attention to it, I can't anticipate trends or shifts that may occur, either positive or negative. Unlike if it's something that I really enjoy, like Spider-Man. Because I like Spider-Man, I pay attention to Spider-Man related things, and I can anticipate if some announcement is actually made about Spider-Man, I can actually think about a comic or two or a dozen that might be impacted by this positive news, and I can take advantage of that in a lot of different ways. So again, there are benefits, at least in my mind, to finding something that I enjoy, collecting that thing and also investing in that very same thing, because it all makes sense in my head. Now, you'll have to decide what makes sense ultimately for you and for your collection, but these are some of the rules that I kind of live by. Another big thing that I'll throw out there for you is that I practice a principle called the blue ocean strategy, and there are videos on the channel that go into a lot more detail. But what is happening right now is that a lot of people are coming into the hobby, and they are coming back into the hobby because they're sitting at home, because values of comics are going up, and they're digging in their bins and trying to see what's out there. The MCU and all the various movies that are coming out are driving people to the hobby, which I think is wonderful, right? All of that stuff is wonderful. But what is also happening is that people are focusing on a very narrow, air quotes, a very narrow set of collectibles. And as a result of that narrow focus, the value of those collectibles are actually going up. And overall, I think it's a relatively small percentage of the total number of comics that are out there. But people are paying attention to this very narrow sliver. And as a result of that, the value of those books in that sliver are actually going up. That is the red ocean. That is the competitive waters that people are fishing in. But the rest of the pie, right, the rest of the ocean is blue, because people aren't necessarily paying attention to that, because maybe there's not a movie or a TV show or an announcement that is attached to those comics. Those comics, that larger slice of the pie, represents some amazing opportunities. So again, if you are reading, collecting, and investing in something that you actually enjoy, potentially it is not the red ocean. Potentially it's something that is in the blue ocean, which means that there are some great opportunities for you to be able to pick up some books, add them to your collection without paying the crazy prices that might be associated with the books that are in the red ocean. Hopefully I didn't mix too many metaphors between oceans and pies and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, my hope is that this video provides a little bit of guidance, a little bit of context, a framework for people to be able to operate in. If you send me a message and you ask me to tell you what to buy, I'm going to tell you I can't answer that. I'm going to ask you a ton of questions. What are your goals? How much disposable income do you have? What do you think you should buy? What are you interested in? How long are you going to hold the books? There's all these questions that I'm going to ask you, not so that you can give the answers to me, but so that you can answer those questions for yourself. Because by answering those types of questions and thinking about some of the things that are mentioned in this video, you are actually going to figure out for yourself what you should be collecting, how you should collect, how you should invest in this hobby. And my hope overall is that you're going to be in this hobby for a long period of time. I will also add that if you are watching this and you have a ton of experience in this hobby, if there are things that I did not think about or mention in this video, I definitely want to encourage you to leave those comments and thoughts in the comment section to help our fellow collectors that are finding their way here. It is nearly impossible for me to create a single video with like everything. So if you have some great tips, leave them in the comment section. I think that our fellow collectors will benefit from it. As always, if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.